1. My parents are immigrants from Mexico. Growing up, we would always go visit the family during Christmas, where we would stay at my grandparents' house. Now, this is an old house in a town that was founded in the 1700s. I will say that personally, I never felt truly comfortable in this house. Everywhere else, I felt fine. Although in this house, I always felt like I was being watched and always on edge. A lot of family members have stated the same. Now for the story. Back in 2018, my family and I were visiting. My grandparents don't live in that house anymore due to them moving in with my uncle, since they have aged to a point where it is not safe for them to live alone anymore. My family had the whole house. We ended up all sleeping in the same room, the master bedroom, you could say. That is where my grandparents always slept. This room is huge. My grandparents had a king, queen, and twin-size bed set up in there, which was enough to fit my whole family. The only thing different about this last visit is that my grandparents' usual bed was gone, as it was taken to my uncle's house for them. To make up for this, we took a queen-sized inflatable mattress and set it up where my grandparents' bed would have been, and took turns sleeping there. On the third night of our visit, I was sleeping on the inflatable with my younger sister, when I woke up in the middle of the night. I look over towards my feet, and at the end of the bed I see a black dog sitting there. To describe this dog, imagine a Doberman with very pointy ears. I will never forget those. Just all black and sitting on its hind legs. Me, still being half asleep, stared at it for a bit, wondered WTF, and just went back to sleep. I felt no fear at all. The next morning we were having breakfast, and I bring up that I saw a dog at the foot of the bed last night, just to strike up some conversation. As I said this, my brother's eyes got super wide, and he interrupts me with an "I saw it too." Only he didn't see it the same night I did, but the night before. Then he begins to describe the dog exactly how I saw it: black pointy ears, the build of a Doberman, just not as big. But he didn't bring it up because he didn't want to seem crazy or something. He said he stared at it for a good while, and moved his head around to essentially discern that he was indeed seeing what he thought he was seeing. We discussed it some more, and we even went into the room, and determined it was sitting close to the same spot where I saw it. Which, from that spot, it would have had a view of the whole room and all the beds. My brother and I both agree that we never felt any fear. More just like a "what in the world" moment. Sometimes I wonder if this dog was a guardian, guarding us from whatever it is that makes everyone in the house so uneasy. Then there are people who I've told this story to that say black dogs are bad omens, so I'm not really sure what to think about it. All I know is it didn't make me feel afraid or threatened. 2. So this happened about 2 or so years ago, but it still sends chills down my spine whenever I think about it. There's a local factory that was made in 1890 and opened in 1891 as a sewing factory, where people handcrafted detachable collars and cuffs. In 1999, it was repurposed as a bunch of little consignment shops throughout the whole building in each room. Today, there's still the original huge elevator shafts with rickety gated doors. Anyways, one night me and my friend decided to go and check out one of the bookshops that just opened up there. We headed downstairs, went left into the store, and eventually took a break on one of the benches before leaving. To our knowledge, nobody else was in the building, or at least in the basement with us. So we were sitting there, and the way the bench is positioned is flat up against the wall, where you can see all the way up the hallway, with the flight of stairs to our right and one of the shops to our left. While we were sitting there, I started to feel this, uncomfortable feeling, and tried telling my friend I wanted to leave and to hurry up, because I just didn't like this feeling. He told me to calm down, and that we'd leave in a minute, and the uncomfortable feeling went away. As we were about to get up and go, we saw someone come around the corner and start approaching us. We figured it was the maintenance worker, but that feeling of uncomfortableness came over me again, yet worse this time. Now, the way he turned the corner was completely unnatural. He walked to the end of the hallway, stared at the wall in front of him for a solid 5 seconds, and then turned towards us and took a brief pause before coming our way. The way he turned the corner, though, it seemed like he just knew we were there, and was completely unfazed when he saw us. I would say that's plausible, but we were being fairly quiet, and the hallway was a solid 30 to 40 feet long, so we'd have to be talking decently loud for him to hear us. I went into panic mode, but my friend kept their cool. The place was still open, we weren't breaking any rules, just sitting on this bench. My friend calmly looked at him and just said, "Hi, how you doing?" And the man didn't say anything. He just kept walking towards us at a somewhat rapid pace. I remember looking him in the eyes. He had zero expression, not anger, not happiness, not confusion, not nothing. It was severely unsettling. Even after my friend said something to him, completely unfazed, he was just on a mission to get to us. You'd assume if this was a maintenance worker, he'd either tell us it's time to leave or say hi back or something, anything. But nope, just this blank, expressionless face, making his way towards us. After he didn't respond to my friend and started getting close to us, we just gave each other this "we need to go" look and sprinted out of there. When we got out of the building and down the road, the uncomfortable feeling left me, and I started calming down. We didn't really talk about what just happened, we just went on our way back to my house. Ever since that night, I haven't been back to the factory or any of the shops there. Something about that man wasn't right, and it sent chills down my spine seeing him, and it sends chills down my spine just saying this. I'm a firm believer of the paranormal, and I can just about guarantee that whatever that was definitely wasn't human. 3. Several years back, I became friends with my neighbor's teenagers. I was slightly older than them and had just moved to the area. We would go rollerblading, hiking, and do random things to pass the time. One day we were talking about ghosts and decided to make a homemade Ouija board. I had never played with one, and neither had they. I didn't think it would actually do anything, as we made it out of cardboard and Sharpies. We copied an image we saw online onto our cardboard as we sat in their living room. After its completion, we laughed and talked. I had just bought a small camcorder at the store a couple days before, mainly because I had a job and had to spend money, and there was nothing left to buy. In my oh-so-dramatic form, I felt the need to say a few words over our homemade Ouija board before setting up the camera to capture anything just in case something did happen. "Spirits, I call you here and now, awake all that does reside, and bring them here by our side." I had not planned on saying anything, but it sounded poetic at least. We pushed our little triangle around our cardboard as it spelled out random words with no real intent. Soon their mother came in to prepare lunch. She peers into the room asking what we were doing. She didn't seem too pleased to see us gathered around the table. Nonetheless, we began again. The younger daughter asked, "Is anyone there?" And instantly the pointer moved to yes. The air in the room changed. The older daughter asked, "Who are you?" The pointer again began to move. At this point, I was getting uneasy as it spelled out Timothy. The girls laughed, saying we don't know anyone by that name. I didn't speak, but I didn't know anyone either. I didn't really believe in this thing, but the room around felt heavier. From where I was sitting, I could see into the kitchen, and I noticed their mother had come to a standstill. Again the girls said, "Who are you?" And it began to move once more, this time spelling out the words, "Your brother," as a glass came crashing to the floor in the kitchen. We all jumped, turning around to face the kitchen to see their mother standing there, eyes wide with shock. The girls asked, "How do you know that name, Mom?" She looked at the girls and said, "That was the name of the baby I lost before either of you were born." She had never told the girls of this. I grabbed the camcorder and flipped the screen out to watch the video. I watched thinking I saw a glimpse of something. I rewind several times till I finally see in slow motion a shadow that walks all around the table as we are speaking. Then it goes toward the kitchen. The shadow wasn't dark like the typical movie shadow, but dark like someone walking in front of a light. We show the video to the girl's mother, who demands we take the homemade Ouija board out of her house. We gather it up quickly, as we're all freaked out by this point. We were walking down the road trying to figure out what to do with this thing, as I was not about to take it to my house. So there by the road, a few inches from the pavement, we folded it and buried it in the ground. We had read not to burn it, but no one said not to bury it. This too was a mistake. Within 2 years, every house along this road sat vacant. Murder and suicide, the fate of those who didn't move out in utter fear. But that's a story in its own. Looking back now, I wish we'd never buried it. Whatever this thing was we woke up wasn't their brother, and I'm sure because the events that followed were a hellish nightmare. So if you have a Ouija board, I have no clue how to dispose of it, and my advice would be not to touch it at all. 4. I have a few stories that I can't explain, but this is the one I feel the need to share, because it happens to align with the type of experience that so many people have reported throughout the years, arguably since ancient times. I'd always been certain of what I saw, but when I first became aware of shadow people as a commonly reported phenomena, any doubt I had about the incident disappeared. So many people have tried to tell me that what I experienced was just a dream, or simply brushed it off with that look that says, this guy's either nuts or lying. And honestly, it's time that people start taking victims of paranormal visitation at their word. In an age where we're starting to wake up to the fact that victims of all forms of abuse deserve a voice and representation, it's sad to see so many people disregarded as mentally ill or confused, just because their experience lacks an accredited scientific explanation. My experience was not as extreme as some that I've heard from others on various paranormal forums and podcasts, but it has affected my life in a number of ways. And to have the source of so many anxieties and frustrations in your life be disregarded as a dream or a fiction leaves a person feeling very alone, unable to really explore their trauma because the subject is so taboo, and very few people are willing to take your account seriously and help you search for answers. This is my story, and I assure you, I have nothing to gain by bringing you a false account. I just want to put my testimony out there so that other experiencers can know that they are not alone, and they are probably not crazy. There are things in this life that do not yet have a scientific explanation, and humanity is not the only sentient intelligence that operates in this world. Beyond that, I really don't know a damn thing, but accepting that fact is the first step in beginning to fully understand the nature of this world, or any others that may exist. The first time I saw it, I was about 8, maybe as old as 10. I was living in a dingy little house in Clear Lake, Iowa, in what you'd consider to be the trashier part of a small tourist town. My room was at the end of a long hallway on the right side of the hall, if you were looking toward it from the kitchen on the opposite end. Across the hall, the left side, was my toddler sister's room, and in the middle of the hall, on the left, was the door to my parents' room. One morning, I got out of bed and started moving toward the kitchen. When I was just about at my parents' door looking toward the kitchen, the figure appeared. It sort of leaned into the hall from the living room, which was adjacent to the kitchen. It was a tall black figure. Black, as in pitch black. But sort of smoky and hazy, like it was just a bunch of compressed black smoke molded into a human form. Everyone seemed tall to me as a kid, but this thing certainly seemed taller than my parents, who are 5'5" and about 5'6" respectively. The only distinguishable feature of the being were 2 glowing red eyes, just like circular LEDs on its face. They didn't really seem to be the size and shape that a human eye really is, but truly round and glowing brightly. This detail I'm sort of fuzzy on, but that's what I recall. From the moment it leaned into view, the thing was just watching me, and when I saw it, I stopped and watched it back. I wasn't exactly scared, but had the distinct impression that this was all it was there to do, to watch. I knew this wasn't normal. I knew this wasn't something that I should be seeing in the real world, and I was uncomfortable. But all in all, The thing was non-threatening and didn't make any advancements on me. It just stood there for a minute or two and then leaned back out into the living room. I didn't follow it to see if it had disappeared. I just went back to my room until my parents woke up. I never woke up from this experience. My day progressed seamlessly into a normal day. I knew this was not a dream because I was very familiar with my dreams. I had constant night terrors in this house, but I'll get to that later on. The point being, the kinds of dreams I had were more distinctly bizarre and surreal than this experience. And I always woke up with an understanding that what I had experienced that night was just a dream. This was not the case that morning. If I was dreaming that morning, then I'm still dreaming because I never woke up from that. The second experience was just as brief, but a bit more menacing. I can't say how much time passed between the two events, but this incident was in the dead middle of the day, in full daylight with other people in the house going about their daily business. My mother was in the living room, and I had just walked into the kitchen and toward the hall. I was now standing approximately where the figure had been on the first occasion, looking down toward my room and my sister's. Suddenly, the figure appeared. This is where it gets really bizarre, because the thing actually crept out of my room. I mean, this effing thing was literally creeping like some old-school Scooby-Doo villain, walking on tiptoes with its arms raised and hands bent toward the floor. If you get what I'm illustrating here, you should probably laugh because it was just as goofy as it sounds. It crept from my room into my sister's room, which is what really freaked me out about this event. The whole event was over in just a few seconds. Moving in this bizarre manner, it had its head turned toward me the whole time. From the moment it crossed the threshold of my door, its eyes were already on me, as if to say, "Yeah, bitch, I'm here, straight creeping around your house, and there's nothing you can do about it. No one's gonna believe you." I had already told my mom about the first sighting, and of course she dismissed it as a dream or an overactive imagination, so I didn't bring it up. But I was really scared that it had some sinister intentions with my sister. I do remember her having some nightmares around this time, which I heard from my room, her crying to my mom about how the creature from the Black Lagoon, a movie we watched often in our household, was standing in the corner of her room. I asked her about this years later, but she doesn't remember any details on that. That's it. That's all I saw of this shadow person. But there's another element to my life at this house that I feel might be relevant to what I experienced. As I mentioned earlier, I was prone to night terrors while living in this house. Vivid but bizarre nightmares that almost always had something to do with being chased by various demons, monsters, etc. I'd need a whole post just to describe the details of these dreams, but I later on realized that some of these occasions I had actually experienced some sleep paralysis and astral travel. I think that's a pretty woo-woo term to use, but that's the lingo people use, so I'll stick with it. One recurring type of dream I had went like this. I'd be lying in my bed, everything seeming to be completely normal in my room, as it was in waking life. But I'd get this feeling, this instinctual understanding that something horrible was about to come through my door. I'd start to panic, but would be unable to move my body, so rather than use my arms and legs to physically leave my bed, I would, through a sheer force of will, hover off my bed and float to the corner of the ceiling, as out of reach as possible. Nothing else was really different about my room in these experiences, except for that dread that something was trying to get in. Another night, I had a similar dream, where I woke up in my familiar room to find a tall, hairy man standing above me, reaching for me. I had a strong sense that this skinny ape-like man was there to take me, and I remember doing my best to resist him. But the ending of that dream is fuzzy. That shit freaks me out to this day, more than the shadow person encounters, because hairy men are a pretty common occurrence in high strangeness research. So I can't help but worry that there was some reality to that experience. I bring these dreams up because it seems that vivid nightmares in certain locations, this only happened in that house, that also have reported paranormal activity indicates a relationship between the two. If you subscribe to the idea that these beings feed off fear, then it seems plausible that the two are connected. So that's my story. If you've had a similar experience with a shadow person or any other unexplainable entity, leave a comment below or hit my inbox. You can find the link in the description of this video. Please don't cheapen my experience or the experiences of others by posting a made-up story or creepypasta, because this is very real for me, and people who falsify paranormal encounters for attention make it that much harder for the voices of real experiencers to be heard. If you've experienced something that should not be possible, just know you are not alone. 5. My parents decided to move house when my younger sister was born, and it took them a while to find the perfect house. My sister was nearly 1, and I was 2 years old when we eventually moved to the new house. Being so young, I do remember the first experience of whatever was in that house. I think it was because I found it terrifying at the time. Now, as an adult, it does not terrify me anymore. The house was a terraced one-up, one-down house built in the 1970s. It had 3 bedrooms, one of which was tiny, 1 bathroom, living room, dining room, and a small kitchen. My parents decided that we would each have a bedroom. My bedroom was to be at the back of the house facing the garden next to the bathroom, and my parents' and sister's rooms were at the front of the house. Sorry for the description, but it is important. I remember the first night there. My parents must have moved in that day or over a few days. I'm not sure, but my bed was assembled, and I remember waking up, or something woke me up rather, in the bed. I remember that there was a light beaming from the ceiling that my parents must have left on, so the room was somewhat light and not totally dark. I looked in the corner as I heard some sounds, and I was naturally curious as a child. And there was a figure, and it started to smile. I'm assuming, as it was completely dark, it showed a set of very sharp teeth, and it kept making weird sounds. That is when I started screaming. My mom rushed in to see what was wrong, and I kept saying to her, "Bad man, bad man," pointing in the corner. Many years later, my mom told me that she thought I was just scared in a new house. Mom told me to go back to sleep, and that nothing was there, but I was hysterical, and asked that my sister move into the room, as if she could keep me safe that night. My parents refused, but I was stubborn, and my dad had to dismantle my sister's cot and assemble it in what was now our room. A few years go by. Nothing happens that I can remember, but I do remember not being comfortable upstairs by myself, even during the daytime, and would avoid going up there. However, that changed when I think I was 7 years old, and my sister was 6 at the time. Again, it was nighttime. I woke up, and I had a strong urge to look out of the window and see the streetlights on, and see if there was any snow, as it was wintertime. My bed was by the window, so I stood on my bed and opened my curtains like I usually did at nighttime. But this night was different. Instead of seeing the garden and the road behind it with the streetlights, there was a face. Well, a head. The head had a black top hat just like the Victorians used to wear, with long white hair and a white beard. He had blue eyes, and he smiled at me, but he had sharp yellow teeth. I began to scream, which then woke up my sister, who then looked at the window and saw the head as well. She started to scream and shout. My mum, who was awake downstairs, did not hear us scream at first until a few minutes later. She rushed upstairs and asked us what was the matter. We told her about the face, and she asked us what he looked like, and we told her. I don't think she believed us, and told us it was Jack Frost, as it was winter time, and he spread the frost on the floor. I was petrified when I was young and someone would mention Jack Frost on the weather forecast. She calmed us down, and by the time my mum came upstairs, that face had disappeared. The next morning, my mum asked us to draw the face separately, so my sister was in the living room and I was in the kitchen drawing what we saw the night before. When we finished, my mum compared both pictures, and they were identical. For years, my sister and I would hear footsteps on the carpet, going around our beds at night. Items would go missing. I had a favorite top, and it went missing and was never seen again. Toys that did not have batteries in would start to play by themselves. I was about 13 years old when I asked my parents if we could have our own rooms. My sister and I had been arguing a lot, and I had read in a teen magazine that a haunting would go away if there was new furniture and everything. So we both got new furniture for our rooms, and it was redecorated. I was very happy to have my own space, and I loved having my own desk with a chair, although it clicked if someone sat down on it. In hindsight, it was a huge mistake. Within a few weeks, a light bulb had blown and was needed to be replaced. It felt like someone was watching me every time I was in there. My cats would refuse to go into the bedroom at night, and if they were put in there, they would growl and run back out of there. Strangely enough, my cats would come back into the room at the same time every day, which would be 5:30 a.m. They would not be growling, and would get up on the bed and sleep. About a year later, I decided to go to bed early, whilst my family was downstairs watching television. At night, the landing light would be on, and I would have my door open. I felt safer when it was open. But that night, for some unknown reason, I decided that the door was to be closed. I got into bed, and as soon as I did, the chair clicked. I thought it was strange, but put it down to my imagination. A few minutes went by, and it did it again and again, and it built up intensity. Soon it was clicking like someone was sitting down and getting up again quickly. I could actually hear the chair groan under the strain. I started to cry, and I said the Lord's Prayer, which did not work. After what seemed like hours, maybe 30 minutes or even shorter than that, my sister came up the stairs and heard the chair clicking away, and also my sobbing. She came in the room and the chair stopped clicking. It just stopped. I ran out of there and down the stairs and told my parents. My dad saw how terrified I was and decided that he would sleep in my room that night, and I slept in my sister's room. I do not know what my dad experienced in there, but he sold the house very quickly, and we moved within a couple of months. The chair was thrown out. Now I am in my 30s, and I can look back. I do not think that it was evil. I just think that it liked to scare young children and teenagers. I have other experiences, which I can truly say was evil, but this was not. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to 5 True Paranormal Stories, episode 230, and thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. If you enjoyed the video, then click the like button like a normal person. Don't use a Ouija board. What the hell were you thinking? And if you do use a Ouija board, remember to close it out when you're done. Comments can also be left in the usual manner. If you'd like to see more videos, be they paranormal or the funnier ones I do, then please do hit subscribe. It's helpful to me, it's helpful to the channel, it's probably good for the environment because, I don't cry as much and it uses less water. In theory. Okay, and with that, I'm going to head off for now because I'm feeling a little iffy today. It's been, 2.5 weeks? You'd think, the vaccine side effects would be over by now, but no red flag symptoms, it seems. I've looked them up, but just some weird ones. Anyway, I'm going to head off for now, so until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.